I probably should have cleared my throat out a little more. Hello, everybody. This week's review is going to be a movie. I'm really doing this because Elvis's 85th birthday was last month, and I wasn't paying attention to that. So I'm reviewing the 1979 made for TV. I can't speak now. Apparently, made for TV movie biopic directed by John Carpenter, who's probably mostly well known for films like Halloween, Escape from New York, and a bunch of other movies. And Starring Kurt Russell, this is the first time that Kurt Russell and John Carpenter worked together, because they would work together as often as like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, or Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. Anyways, so this movie came out 2 years after Elvis had died, so this would have been 1979. And I think what's really cool about it is that, I mean, John Carpenter has composed music for his own movies, and he is a rock and roll kind of guy. Um, so for him, he was quoted as saying that Elvis was really big and he really wanted to do this movie. And when the original Halloween came out, it kind of gave him enough creative freedom to tackle whatever other movie he wanted to do. And since he was a huge Elvis fan, he figured he was going to do a movie about Elvis. But as I said before, this isn't a theatrical film. This is a movie that was made for TV and, aired in '79. So the one thing I would like to say about the movie before I get into the acting and Kurt Russell's performance is that it is actually really cool to see John Carpenter try something that's wildly different from most of the movies he's done. Because a lot of the movies he did with Halloween, Escape from New York, uh, The Thing, he's kind of known for doing dark, messed up movies. And I mean, okay, Christine, technically that's a horror movie, but I didn't find that movie anywhere near remotely scary. I thought it was kind of silly. Um, but it is kind of nice to see him do a movie that's not really horror or fantasy. It's more of a biopic. And as far as biopics go, this came out right after the Buddy Holly story. So the whole idea of doing a biopic was starting to become a little more. It was proof that it could be done and done well. Um, so I think from that standpoint, I think from what I've read about Elvis, most of the stuff you see in the movie is accurate, but they did tweak some things, shift around the timeline. Like for example, Elvis did not do a talent show when he was in high school, and that's what sparked his music career. What sparked it was that he'd always kind of had a thing for singing after he started learning to play guitar when he was a little boy, and he also kind of they didn't get the idea that he was a loner and a mama's boy, but the talent show you see in the movie when he's in like high school, that happened when he was in fifth grade. Um, So the movie does, I mean, it does take a long time to establish Elvis's rise to fame, but it does kind of change his age a little bit when some of these events happen. But I think once he gets to his musical career, that's when the inaccuracies start to crop up at a much infrequent pace, at a very not as frequent. Um, And as far as Kurt Russell playing Elvis, I mean, it's a good performance. Don't get me wrong, but I've seen this kind of performance before in these types of movies where you have the main character, the lead singer, and he's kind of this rebellious, stubborn, tough guy. But even though they do have that in there, they do kind of show Elvis being very affectionate and very loving towards his mom, because it is well documented that Elvis was a mama's boy, and he did get mocked for that growing up, as well as the way he wore his hair, the way he acted, you know. So it does stay true to the story. And I do like the idea that the movie ended when Elvis was getting his mojo back, because they didn't want to. I mean, it would have been pretty depressing if you saw the last few years of Elvis's life where he was just falling apart. That would have been way too depressing to watch. And again, considering that this movie came out 2 years after Elvis actually died in real life, rewatching that all over again for all the people that knew Elvis' story, that would have been, you know, non flashbacks for those people. Um, there really isn't much else to say about this movie. It's funny. I feel like I've talked about most of the movie in only about 5.5 minutes, and yet the film is almost 3 hours long. I think that's kind of impressive. But okay, I'll stop doing that to me. There's no need. Anyhow, so I do think that the way Elvis is portrayed is kind of like every other rocker in these kinds of stories. Um, I'm trying to think what else I could say. The thing is that even though Kurt Russell, aside from him off stage, when he's on stage, he does a great job at capturing the frenetic energy that Elvis would have when he would perform. The only thing is, Kurt Russell is not singing. He's actually being dubbed by some Elvis sound-alike. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the sounded like they got really nailed Elvis's voice. And I mean, it's a really easy thing to nail because it's so distinct and so unique that it'd be very easy to find someone that could do a good job at mimicking it. And I do think that a lot of the movie, it's actually kind of cool to see I mean, think about it. We've had a lot of musical biopics over the past 4 decades or so. There was Buddy Holly, there was the Elvis story. Then you had the '80s. You had La Bamba, you had Selena, um, Walk the Line, Ray, and even recently we've had Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man was. I'm not sure. I guess you call it a fantasy biopic. I haven't seen Rocket Man, but I heard it does take a lot of liberties with Elton John's story. But I do think that what this movie did is that even though it was a made-for-TV movie, the budget looks like it would be for a regular theatrical production. I don't know why they made it a TV movie because I think this movie would have been a huge hit regardless of whether or not they made it theatrical or not. So I don't see why they didn't just go for a theatrical release because I think that would have been a huge draw to the box office. And I think that's really all I'd have to say. I mean, the music, what can I say? It's Elvis Presley. Of course it's good. My only other real complaint, and this kind of ties back to the chronology being messed with, is that Elvis's comeback tour started in '68. They don't even mention it. It gives you the impression that he did a few dumb movies in the '50s and the '60s, vanished from the public eye, and then came out in 1970. Yeah, the '70s is when he started his residency performances in Vegas, but his actual comeback tour was in '68, and it wasn't a whole decade or so. Anyway, I mean, as much as I complain about the inaccuracies here and there, I feel like those are more nitpicks. But yeah, there's really not much else I can say. But I don't know when I'm gonna be posting my next guitar cover this upcoming week. I'll find that out on Monday because other stuff is going on. Next week, I will be reviewing Birds of Prey, I hope. And I will see you guys at the next cover. See ya.